Hello, NR programmers. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to build out a RESTful API using an Express server and a MongoDB database. So let's get right to it.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
So first off, to begin with, the tools that we're going to need to kind of build out this API. One, I have Postman installed, and this is what we're going to use to actually test out our API. And two, I also have MongoDB Compass installed, and that's just so I have like a nice GUI where I can come here and kind of see the data that we're kind of working with and manipulating. So it takes some time to install those if you don't have them already. And so to start off, so we just have a empty folder here called Mongo REST API demo. And first thing we're going to start off by doing is running npm init. Okay. And I'm going to pass in a -y flag so it gives us default values when it goes ahead and creates the package.json for us. Cool. Now we have the package.json in there. And in terms of dependencies, we're going to need 3 dependencies. One, we're going to need Express. We're also going to need Mongoose. Mongoose is like an ORM for MongoDB. And the third one is optional. You don't really need it. You don't have to use it. But I'm going to go ahead and install Nodemon as well. And that's just a dev dependency. So actually, let me do this. That's npm install Express and Mongoose. Cool. Now that that's done, let's go ahead and install Nodemon as well. And Nodemon is just a really handy tool that goes ahead and refreshes our server for us as we're making changes, so we don't have to stop the server and restart it over again ourselves. Okay. Now that that's done, actually right before we open it, also let's go ahead and touch up. Let's go ahead and create a server.js file. Now let's open it up in Visual Studio Code. Cool. So now we have all of our things that we want here. And we're going to open up this server.js file. So we're going to go ahead and take care of this in 3 steps. One, we're going to go ahead and set up our Express server. And then we're going to go ahead and create our model for Mongo. And then we're going to go ahead and establish our connection to MongoDB and create our endpoints. So first, let's go ahead and import. Let's require Express. So we're going to do class Express is equal to require Express. And next we're going to do, alright, so once we have that done, let's actually go ahead and initialize our app. So we could do class app is equal to Express. And now let's go ahead and add some middlewares that we're going to, that we need to go ahead and, so what these middlewares are going to do, they're going to go ahead and parse the body for us, give us access to the body in our post, and also it's going to, just going to parse the data for us. So we're going to do app.use express.url encoded. And then here we're going to say extended. We're going to set that to true. On the next line, we're going to do app.use express.json. Save this. And now that we have those set up, so towards the bottom here, we're going to do an app.listen. And also we're going to need our port variable as well. So let me back this up. And let's do const port. Type const port equals process.env port, or we're going to make our default 3500. Okay. And next we're going to come here where we have our app.listen. We're going to do app.listen port. I'm going to do console.log app is listening on port port. Okay. We save this, and let's actually go ahead and set up a route so we can actually go ahead and test out the server, make sure it's working. So we're gonna make that the endpoint, and we're gonna need a rec and res middlewares. Open up our error syntax, and all we're going to do is res.send hey from Mongo API. We save this. So let's go ahead and actually start this up. So I'm gonna open up my terminal that's in VS Code as opposed to the one in Git Bash. Let's make things easier. And also what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually set up our start script in our package.json. So we're gonna come here, we're just gonna eliminate this test script here. And we're gonna turn this to start. And for our start script, we're gonna make this Nodemon server.js. Save this. And now, cool, close this up. And now we can come to our terminal and run npm start. A typo. App is listening on port undefined. All right, now I see what's going on there. So we're gonna close this out. Essentially, we messed up in our app.listen. The way this kind of works is, so port would actually be our first parameter we pass in, then we would have a comma, and then pass in our function as the second argument as so. And now if you come here and try to run this again, okay, there we go. App is listening on port 3500. Now let's go ahead and try to hit this route, see if we get this response back. So we're listening on port 3500. Let's go to Postman. We're gonna do HTTP ://localhost 3500. Let's do a get. And there we go. Hey from Mongo API. Cool. So our Express server is working. Now let's go back in the code. Now that we have our Express server working, now let's go ahead and work on Mongo stuff. So, well, first thing I'm going to start off, let's start off by actually creating our model. So I'm going to come here, have a models folder, and in here, I'm going to do new file. And essentially, we're going to make a books API. So I'm going to call this book.js. Okay, now that we're in our book model, first thing we're going to start off by doing is importing our schema and model from Mongoose. So we're going to do const schema model equals require Mongoose. And also, sorry, here schema is supposed to be a capital S. Save this. And now we're actually going to go ahead and set up our schema. So we're going to do const book schema is equal to new schema. Open this up. And now let's go ahead and create the schema. In terms of fields for our book, one, we want a title. And for this title here, we are going to make it, let's make it required true. And we're going to say, let's do a trim true as well. And that way, if they pass in extra stuff, it trims it for us. And for the type, okay, the type is actually the most important one. For the type, we're going to make it a string. Cool. Now we have our title field in our book schema declared. Now in define, now we're going to what other fields should we add? So we have a title. Next, let's add an author. And for the author, we're going to make this of type string as well. We're going to say trim true. And we're going to say, yeah, let's make this one required as well. Required true. Cool. And the last field we're going to do a rating field. So for the rating type, we're going to make this a number. And trim require, we're not going to make this one required, but we are still going to do the trim true. Last one we're going to make a created at, and for the created at, we're going to give it a type, which is going to be date, and we're going to give it a default, which is going to be date dot now. Cool. And now that we have our, see, we have an error there. Okay. Cool. Now that we have our schema set up, to get our model, all we have to do is const book equals model, and we're going to pass in book. For the second argument, we're going to pass in our schema, which is book schema. And now we just export it. So module.exports is equal to book. Cool. Now we essentially have our model set up right now. And all we have to do now is actually put some comments here. So this is Express server imports. So let's call it Express server stuff. And here we're going to do Express server middlewares. In this section, we're going to have our express routes. Okay. Now we're going to call this a model MongoDB collection. We're going to do const book equals require. So how are we going to do this? Models slash book. Okay, now that we have that set up, now let's actually go ahead and establish a connection to our MongoDB, database. So here we're going to do MongoDB connection. And here we are going to do our mongoose.connect. So first we actually need to import Mongo. So we're going to do const Mongoose is equal to require Mongoose, and that's what we installed earlier on as a dependency. Now that we have that set up, let's do mongoose.connect, and in there we're going to pass in process.env MongoDB URI underscore URI, or we're going to pass in the string MongoDB :// localhost / books DB. Save this, and then we're going to pass in our second parameter, which is just our options, our configurations, once we are connected to Mongoose. So we're going to do use find and modify and set that one to false. We're going to do use new URL parser. We're going to set that to true. We're going to do use unified topology, and we're going to set that one to true as well. Once we save this, so Now that we have that set up, we actually we're gonna copy this connection string here, and I'm gonna go over to our MongoDB compass. On the left top hand side, I'm gonna click on connect to. Cool. Once that opens up, we're going to paste our connection string in here and click connect. Awesome. So we're all good to go now. We actually won't be able to see anything until we actually add something to our table. So let's go ahead and actually set up a route where we're actually doing stuff here. So yeah, first let's set up our post route. Then we can actually add some data to the database, and then we can work on read, update, and delete afterwards. So for this, I'm going to call it /book as our endpoint. Rec res Okay. And what we're going to do is the book, because remember we imported our book model from up here. All we have to do is book.create, and then we pass in our body essentially. So we're going to do rec.body, and we're going to do .then book. Res.json book, and we're going to chain a .catch. We're going to do .catch error. If this for some reason it wasn't able to successfully do it, create the book for us. We're going to res.json error.message. Let's save this. And since we have Nodemon installed, you see how it restarts the server for us. And now let's go over to Postman. And let's go ahead and try to post to our route. So we're going to change our method to post, add our /book to our endpoint. Let's click on body, and let's do raw JSON. And we're going to pass in. So for our books, remember in our model, we had, remember in our model, we had title, which is required, and author, which is required. Rating is optional. Created at is just going to get created for us. So for title, let's go ahead and pass in, title. Let's go ahead and pass in from Mongo API. And for the author, we are going to pass in NRP. We save this, give it a run. Cool, there it is. We got a 200 successful status okay for it. And we have our created at field, ID, title, and author. Let's say we tried removing this author field here. Actually, first before we do that, let's go ahead and add a rating. Because remember that rating was optional. So if we actually go ahead and add a rating now, it's going to create a new one that has a rating of 4 for us. Let's say we removed author. Remember, author was one of our required fields in our model. Right now, if we try to post, we're going to get an internal server error. Wait, what? Oh, okay, that's why it didn't work. So if you go back in the book schema, you see how on line 5 we have required, and then line 12 we have a typo here. So let's fix that, add our D for required. And now let's go ahead and give that another shot, see if it's working as intended now. So send, post. There we go. Book validation failed, author, pat author is required. Cool. But if we went ahead and added that back in, Let's say we remove rating. Since that's not required, we're still able to post that. Let's say remove title. Title is another one that's required. We get an error. Cool. So now we see that our model is working as intended, and our post route is working. It's working pretty well right now. So now that we have our post route working, now let's go ahead and create our get route, our put, and our delete. So for our get route, I'm just going to leave this import here. And all we're going to do inside of it, we're going to do a book dot find, and then we just pass in nothing in there, just pass in an empty object. And then once they find books, we're going to do a res.json of books. If it didn't work, error res.json error.message. Okay. So what's going on here? Res.catch. Okay, let's just do this so I can see more clearly what's going on here. Error. Oh, it's because we forgot the dot. Okay, dot catch. There we go. Error. Now we're gonna do res.json error.message. Our get route all set up now. So we have our read and our create working right now. So, all right, cool. App is listing on port 3500. Now let's go ahead and try to get our books. See if we're able to successfully hit that route. So we'll get. We got an error. Oh, that's because we don't have a /books endpoint. Remember, when we came into code, we decided we weren't going to do /books. We're just going to leave it as so. Yeah, so if you actually took this out here, now we do a get. There we go right now. And these are every last one of the books that were created just now. There's some with rating, some without rating. Yeah, so those are the 4 books that we created earlier on. Cool. And actually, let me go ahead and add this /book here. Yeah, because, all right, /book. Cool. Now that we have our get route and our post route set up to read and create, to be able to read and create from our database, and now we're going to do a put. And for the put, our endpoint is going to be the same /book. Next, we get our rec and res middlewares. Rec res, boom. Open this up. We're going to do book.find one and update. Find one and update. And then here, we're going to pass in the ID of the book that we're looking for. So we're going to do ID rec.params.id. Actually, it's actually the other way around. So ID rec.params.id. We need to pass in the rec.body so we can actually update stuff. Then we need to pass in this third option here. Next, we're going to do .then book. Open up our error syntax. We're going to do, if they weren't able to find a book, we're going to do res.send. There's no book at ID. Else, we're going to res.json the book that we got. Now let's go ahead and add our .catch. Error. We're going to do res.json error message. Save. Let's go ahead and set up our delete route as well, just to kind of get everything done. So app.delete, our endpoint /book. Let's go to res dot book dot find one and delete. Okay, and here all we need to pass in is ID, just the ID of whatever it is we're actually trying to delete. Once we're done with that, we're going to do a .then book, and we're going to add the exact same validation as up above. So we're going to do if we don't get a book, we're going to do res.send. There's no book with that ID. Else, we're going to res.json our book. Here we're going to nest our .catch, error, res.json, error.message if there's an error. We save this, and I think we should be all good to go. Right, so that's essentially the backend for our REST API if we were building out an API for books. So let's go over to Postman. Let's say we wanted to go ahead and delete this particular one here that says Nevram Mongo API author NRP, and it doesn't have a rating. So let's go ahead and delete this one here. Copy this ID. Oh, and also actually, so we're gonna need this as well in our URI. So we're gonna need this, and this is just to indicate an optional parameter in your URL. Pass in ID. And here we need to pass in ID as well. Save it. Now we come here. Now let's try to do a delete. That book there. Error. 404 not found. True. Cool, and it deleted that from our books for us. So remember before we had 4 books in our database. So if we come here now, /book, now we only have 3. So 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and delete another one. Let's delete this one. Change our method to a delete / the ID, send. Cool, it was deleted. If we do another get, now we only have 2 books in our table. And also, if we come over to MongoDB Compass, if we refresh this here, there's our books DB that we've been working from. And once we click open in it, we'll be able to see all of the data. So for us, it should just be 2 books, right? There it is, books, 2 documents. And there it is. Cool. Yes, that pretty much wraps it up. So this is how you would go about building out a RESTful API using Express and MongoDB. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.